and welcome to Education Roundtable. My name is Larry Petraccaro, and I have with me tonight Johanna Wright. Johanna is a longtime teacher, coach, and now is currently a member of the Board of Education. So without further ado, Johanna, maybe you can give us just a little background on yourself.
Well, yeah, thanks. Thanks for having me. I've been in the district as an educator for over 30 years. I've also coached girls basketball during that time, ran a few clubs, and have had a lot of fun. And that's basically it.
Well, it's good you had some fun.
Had a lot of fun.
Well, what prompted you or brought you into teaching and coaching? And are there any similarities that with teaching and coaching, or is there anything that you find as you follow those two paths that were fairly significantly different?
But a lot of it was really the same. Recently I was honored by the New York Knicks for coaching, and coaching is a means to an end. With basketball, especially for girls, it afforded them many opportunities that I wasn't afforded as a young girl growing up in Montclair. And with education, you want to really work hard and not let anyone outwork you. So they're parallels. They're very, very similar. You want to do the same thing in athletics. Not let anybody, outwork you, and do the things that you have to do, and understand that at the end of the day, things are going to work out for you. And hopefully there'll be a scholarship or something at the end of that.
That's a little bit of discipline in both cases, I guess.
Without a doubt.
Well, what prompted you into education?
Well, I think it started with me being a student in Montclair, and Jean Henningberg, who happened to be a resident in Maplewood and a teacher of physical education in Montclair. And I always loved sports and played with my brothers a lot, and that was sort of the impetus for me wanting to get into education, phys ed in particular. Okay,
and was coaching just a natural outgrowth of that, or?
I knew I wanted to coach, and I came along at a time where there weren't too many things happening for women, but right on the cusp of Title IX. And so my first job coaching was in White Plains, at White Plains High School, and winning a championship there, and conversing with Tommy Ruggiero, who was here coaching. We had a super team during the 70s, and we were trying to get together to play one another, and it didn't happen. It's ironic that I come back across the Tappan Zee Bridge and end up here in the school district in 81.
Yeah. 81. Well, we're glad to have had you. When you mentioned Title IX, I comment sometimes, or think to myself how different the opportunities are for girls now than they were when I was in high school, which was a long time ago. They hadn't invented the electric light by then, but still a while back. But there is just so much more, and I for those of us that have daughters or granddaughters, it's just a great opportunity, for them.
It is, and it is amazing the people who lit the torches and blazed the trails. And Columbia has a real steep history in terms of women in athletics. Going from the Clark sisters to Kristen Ballinger, I mean, we can Marguerite Dempsey, Mary Pat Sherwood. I mean, we can go on and on and on. The Hall of Famers, my daughter included, just so many wonderful student athletes. And we look at the coaches that are back. Many of them were students here, and were athletes here, so it's wonderful.
Well, more recently, was it Olivia Baker?
Olivia Baker, absolutely.
She's like almost a world class.
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
Right. She's out at Stanford now, I think.
She's out at Stanford, and I know she's going to do well. We're going to see her in the Olympics, and from my mouth, it's going to happen.
Okay, remember that. You heard it here. You've now retired. And
I'm redirected.
Redirected, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. That's probably a better way to put it. So what was the impetus behind running for the Board of Ed?
Well, I saw a lot of things that were going on in the district that I could no longer really assist in as a teacher. And so you can sort of say that I came from the inside out to try and make some type of change to get us back to that blue ribbon status that we were so used to. I know when I was recruited here to come and work here, this was one of the best districts in the country, and we were a lighthouse. Everybody wanted to do the things that we were doing, and I'd like to get that back.
Oh, I'm sure we would all agree with that. You're the head of the communications committee.
Yes.
And you may serve on some other committees. I can ask you about that in a minute. But specifically with respect to the communications committee, what is the focus that you have there? You have some like long-term goals or objectives or?
Indeed, we want to make schools community again. You know, somehow we sort of lost that, and when it's hard to talk, it's up to us to listen. So what we've been doing is having different we've scheduled different community forums. We just finished a forum, I call them gatherings.
Okay.
So we had a gathering at Seth Boarding just last Saturday, listening to all of the stakeholders in terms of what the issues are and what we need, and just being able to come out and listen with both ears, just listen with two ears and one mouth, so we can listen twice as hard. And so finding out what the real problems were at Seth Boyden, and then trying to address them. And then having another community forum April 9th, right here at Columbia High School, for the entire community, which is going to be huge, and I hope everyone will come out. But even before that, we had to figure out how we could communicate better, so we brought in 2 BAMI award winners in media and communication, and one happens to teach here in the district. We both used to teach in the district. Alyssa Malaspina, who we lost to Parsippany Troy Hills, she's an administrator there now in technology, and Melissa Butler, who's at South Orange Middle School, were both BAMI Award winners, which is a national award for media, technology, and communication, came in to speak with us, the communications committee, to tell us the kinds of things that we can do to communicate better, from using Twitter to, YouTube, Edmodo, all kinds of things. So it's just a wonderful, wonderful evening for us to absorb all of that knowledge, and now to try and put it into play to communicate better with all of our tax, payers and stakeholders. People need to know what we're doing with the money and where it's going, and what's going on in the schools. It's very important.
Oh, I think it's critically important what goes on in the schools. So that's kind of the focus of the communications committee.
Yes.
And then you mentioned the gathering at April 9th at CHS. Can you give us a little background or a little idea of what we should expect? Because it sounds like you'd like to have the community turn out.
Oh yes, we'd love to have a cross section of the community. From our students are going to be here. We hope to have our senior citizens here. We hope to have the media here. We want the realtors here. We want parents. We want everyone here within the sound of our voice to come and really be a part of this community that we call, our school district. It's really, I think everybody has a role to play, and hopefully we can get a lot of people involved and get them out, and we can listen to them and hear what they feel their issues are, and sort of take some notes and be able to do things from there, because we can't operate within a vacuum where no one's listening.
Well, I like the idea of listening, because I've had conversations with a lot of people who you think they're listening, but they're just waiting for you to stop talking so they can start talking again.
Exactly.
It's a very different kind of arrangement.
Yes.
So what other committees do you serve on?
I'm on the Finance and Facilities Committee. I also am a liaison for the adult school and for the South Orange Recreation Department. I enjoy both of those immensely, all of them, the 3 of them.
So the Finance and Facilities, though, that's a specific BOE committee.
That's a BOE committee, yes.
That must be a tough one to work with. I would may not work with not necessarily the people, but it must be a challenge to try to maintain everything and get everything paid for, and and collect money from from those of us that are residents here.
Yeah, and trying to stay below the 2% cap. I mean, we have lots of money. We just have to learn how to spend it. We have to be careful in terms of. I like to look at comparable districts to us and to see what they're doing to save money and to do things. And the one thing that I noticed was that we do a lot of outsourcing. And with outsourcing, it takes a lot of money away from kids and the things that we have to do. And if we're hiring the people correctly, then we shouldn't have to outsource. For instance, we just spent $450,000 on a DMC report.
DMC is?
District Management Team.
Okay.
was looking at special ed and how we could save money with that. And it turned out to just fizzle out, and we really got nothing, from it. And when you're outsourcing your maintenance, we're supposed to save a lot of money from that, and we haven't. And when you're looking at districts that are comparable to us, and our budget is millions of dollars higher, you have to say to yourself, what's going on? I think that's where, I remember asking for the auditor to come in to ask, the auditor, maybe you're doing other districts that may be comparable to us, to make some comparisons and see where we can save money. And I think that's a big place that we can save in terms of what we're doing.
Well, in terms of special ed and so forth, or you were mentioning some of the things you outsource, I imagine, if I remember correctly, there's a significant portion of the budget that goes to sending kids out of district.
Yeah, and that's where the Montrose facility comes in. Montrose, as you know, used to be our alternative school,
Right,
and it closed
right.
a few years ago. And we were supposed to open up a facility to bring our special needs students home, where we could really generate some revenue from this. And then all of a sudden it was changed to go into a preschool, where we wouldn't make the monies that we would have made had we brought our students home. And I think that most parents would love to see their students come back. And with the costs, we could save millions of dollars and generate that. And then when you're looking at the things that we're trying to do now in terms of trying to purchase Mary Lawn, I have no idea why. But these are things that we're looking at, but we have to make better decisions in terms of what we're doing. And I would really like to look at that Montrose model a little more closely in terms of it being a real revenue generating school for us.
Well, we were chatting before we started, and talking about establishing. You were mentioning it too. I mean, you have to know what the problem is. I mean, when you just kind of do things in a scattergun approach or do things in a vacuum.
Right.
I mean, there must, like for example, I mean, I'm not even sure that we actually know how well our high school graduates do when they leave the high school. If they go, and they go to a lot, very good schools,
right.
But there didn't seem to be a mechanism, if I remember correctly, for accumulating that data. Now maybe that's impossible, I don't know. But it's one of those things that you don't want information just for the sake of information. You want
right.
information in the use of problem solving or a solution, I would imagine.
And I know I was here earlier this year when we had graduates to come back over the winter break to talk with us about the things that they were doing and how they were managing, in college. And, lots of kids can get into college, but how many can actually matriculate?
Right, especially in 4 years.
Yeah, it was more like 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, no, I know.
and the cost is just exorbitant. But are they really making it? Are they really prepared to spend that time and to come out with that degree? I think that's something we really need to look at in terms of following our kids. And we've lost so many great programs here, where we've lost a lot of students to other kinds of educational opportunities, such as wood shop and auto mechanics, and and I'm looking at home ec is going. I'm looking at all these chef shows and things that are on now, and we used to be the leader in those kinds of things. And I'm wondering if there's some way that we can bring some of these programs back to attract our kids and keep them engaged, as first to, everybody's not going to fit in this one little mold. All kids learn differently, and kids have different interests. And if we can bring those things back for children, we're going to do a lot better. We're going to see our kids do.
Could even be thinking about it. But right now, we're going to have to get brought back because we're going to have to take a break for a minute. So if you'll stay with us, we'll be back in about a minute.
Television is a powerful and influential medium that allows different groups the opportunity to produce programming that directly affects their own communities. Public, educational, and government access channels ensure that all people, regardless of race, age, gender, disability, religion, or economic status, have access to local government information and the use of a public communication forum. Make sure everyone has a voice. Support your local PEG channels.
Hi, welcome back. It's Laurie Petraccaro with my guest Johanna Wright. Johanna is a member of the Board of Education, and prior to that she had been for many years a teacher in the district and a coach, well respected in both cases. So we were just chatting a little bit about what was going on with the board. So Johanna, let me just ask, this is something that I've always wondered about. Does the board see their constituents or their audience as just the parents that have children in the district, or do they have a larger vision for those of us, for example, that have had kids go through the school, or even those of us that may live in the towns that have no children in the school system?
Well, first of all, I have to say I'm speaking for myself individually and not for the Board of Education, but absolutely have a vision for all of the stakeholders to be a part of this whole educational process. I think it's important for everyone. Hence the reason for having the April 9th gathering in lieu of our communications meeting. We want to meet with the community, and it really went well with Seth Boyden over the weekend, and we hope to have more of those. And it may mean that we have to go into other schools to talk to people. We may have to go into community centers. We want to come to the people, and Saturday we provided babysitting for the parents to make it easier for them to come in, and maybe we'll have to go into the senior citizens building and talk to them about what's going on educationally and engage our students. And I think it's really, really important that all of the stakeholders are involved in what's going on. After all, they're spending an awful lot of money in taxes.
They are, and speaking of money, then how do you, as a board member or as a board, try to make sure that the money is spent wisely? And to do that, I presume you have to prioritize. And again, to prioritize, it would seem you have to have some reasonable way to identify what you want to prioritize, what the problems are, what the issues are.
Yeah, that's true. Knowing what the problems really are and knowing what to do to address them is a big help. But we need to spend money where money needs to be spent. And we're just not doing a good job of that right now. As I said, we're spending an inordinate amount of money on consultants. And the other thing that was really disconcerting for me was the new wing at Maplewood Middle. I don't know who signed off on it, but I don't know how you build a new wing without air conditioning. So, it's just the little things, it's the checks and the balances. I know that we've had, in terms of the facilities, windows that had to be redone over again, and we're paying money the second and third time around. And the other thing is the training of the staff that we have. When I think about the pool, you're talking facilities, and most of our buildings are very old. And so the upkeep is really, really important. And I think when we lost those custodians that we had, who knew the buildings, who knew the families, we were supposed to save a lot of money when we got rid of them. And I would like for somebody to do some type of investigation to see exactly how much money we've saved, if we have saved, because I don't believe that we have. But I'd like to look into that as well. So we can do a much better job of disseminating funds, from the Title I funds that were mismanaged for our students at Seth Boyden. We need to look more closely at what we're doing and be a little bit more responsible.
And perhaps a little bit more willing to make adjustments. I don't know if this is an issue or not, but if you find something isn't working, do you just continue down that path, or do you try something different?
But see, and that's the thing when we're talking about our focus schools. We have 3 schools in this district that are focus schools, and focus schools means that these schools are on probation, that the state could come in and do their will, and the schools are the 2 middle schools, South Orange Middle and Maplewood Middle, and Clinton School. And the stakeholders who are responsible for getting us off of this list, the teachers, are telling us that programs that we've implemented are not working. It's not working, but we still are driving that bus, and we're not doing any better, rather than saying, you know what, we thought that this would work. Clearly, after 3 years, it isn't working. Why are we spending all of this money, again, resources, into something that's broken, that's defective? And it wasn't the best international baccalaureate program that you could bring in to help to get us off of this focus list and bring kids up to speed. And that's what we want to do.
No, I mean, I would imagine that makes an awful lot of sense to me. I mean, if you try something and it doesn't work, you try something else. I mean, when you were coaching, I suppose you would react to the situation, right?
Absolutely, you make adjustments.
It makes me think of some of our members in Congress that think you should, if you said something in 1973, you should never change your mind after that. You know, it's nice to be, to be able to react to the evidence.
Yes, yes.
At least in my opinion.
Exactly.
Maybe that's my engineering background.
I would love it.
That's my opinion. Despite some of the challenges that we may face, I mean, I think the school district has had a reasonable number of accomplishments. Are there any that come to mind?
Well, when we're talking about the International Baccalaureate Program, where you want to, talk about, looking at things globally now. If you look at the world and look at it globally, I think we have taken leaps and bounds with this. I know that, we had Jason Levy and Jacob Leaf who started Ubuntu. Mm-hmm. In South Africa, where they reached out. You have the Martin Luther King Cultural Horizons Club at South Orange Middle School, who has sister schools in Malawi, East Africa, the Chilulu School, the Victory Primary School in Uganda, the pen pals that they had in Haiti. So they've been reaching out for a very long time, and even going into South Africa for children who were committing suicide. Because they had no one to take care of them. So these are beautiful things. Then we have the Emmys, and of course we have our sports teams. And every time they're reading something about our students and what they have done, it just amazes me, in spite of the kinds of things that are happening. And Matt Girardi, who was just elected as an executive on the New Jersey Student Council board, and finding out that Columbia High School was one of the original schools that wrote the Constitution, really? Was just so enlightening. And then we won the Wright Award last year for the most outstanding high school in terms of sports and being kind to people. These are wonderful things that we don't hear too much about. Our kids are still working hard and grinding. The coaches are doing the things they need to do. The teachers are working really, really hard. The play was just this weekend. I'm looking forward to seeing the play at South Orange Middle School. So our kids are still doing wonderful things. The Hall of Fame, all of the people who have come through. It's just something special about South Orange and Maplewood. You just love it.
I've heard that, and I remember an incident years ago when the Columbian, and I think I was telling you before the show started, that we were interviewing the editors, the high school editors, the kids who were the editors, and the fellow that did the interviewing was a friend of mine. We shared it was not an education roundtable, it was on a Books in Action show, but he was just blown away by the knowledge, the depth, the effort, and the attention and to detail.
Yes.
I mean, you're right. There are obviously we have challenges. Every place has challenges.
Yes.
But you're right. We don't always know about the quality of the students. I mean, and the quality of what's available in this community. The Maplewood Library is having a Maplewood Ideas Festival, and when they look at people who have graduated from our district, I mean, it's just an amazing group.
It's astounding for me, and I get verklempt every time I think about the things that the children have done, and now to look at them as adults, and now seeing their children come through, and it's just amazing.
Yeah.
We're in a special place. This is a really special place.
No, I agree.
And it is worth so much of our time and our effort.
Time and effort.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, but there are some challenges, and probably we should be aware of. I know just having participated in some of the things around here on some of the shows that there were a group of parents concerned with the number of African American students in advanced placement classes, and I think I saw that we had some. We've hired a consultant of some sort. I mean, that's what are we attempting to do to alleviate that issue? I mean, obviously challenges have to be addressed, and I think challenges, frankly, make us better. But.
Right, and we have the Office of Civil Rights and the ACLU in our district now because we've been doing things that we should not have been doing and being monitored. And I think it was so surprising because of who we are and what we celebrate.
Yes.
To have them here. I know a number of members were really, really astonished to find out what was going on. But me coming from the inside, I sort of have a different perspective in terms of what's happening and being a part of it. And so when you walk through classes, you actually see classes by color. Mm-hmm. And that is not what we're about. And those kinds of things, really have to change. And access, I can remember, when I first arrived in the district, that all kids were in the same levels, for the most part, 5 and 6. They were afforded a great education. And now with the park and the testing, the high-stakes testing, when is education actually, going on, and there's only 11 states that basically participated in this. Everybody else dropped out. And we had the experience of looking at New York and seeing what happened there to make better decisions for our kids. And I'm sitting back and I'm looking at the state legislature who is putting in policies right now, laws right now, that are contrary to what our people have agreed to do. So.
Well, one of our former board members is actually in the state legislature, Mila Jacey.
Yes, yes, and she's leading the charge on the change with the sit and stare and bringing down the high stakes testing and take it back. Our teachers, our kids deserve to be taught, not tested.
Yeah, it's one of those things that that it's worth a discussion. I don't know. In general, I think that. If the priority is teaching, what flows from the teaching, you ought to be able to take the test. You ought to be able to do the test.
Right.
Because at some point, you're still going to be expected to do that. We only have a little bit of time left, so let me just ask this question, and maybe we'll keep going. Does the diversity and racial makeup of the district create any special challenges for us that perhaps other districts comparable to our size or economic, status, different than others?
Well, we've always been very, very diverse, and a lot of our students are all over the place. Some are in private schools. Some parents are, double taxed, paying taxes here and then paying for your kids to go. But what we're saying to the world right now is that South Orange and Maplewood is not diverse because of the things that have been brought to bear from the outside. But we have to look at children as children. Mm-hmm. And as I said, when you walk through the halls and things, you see color. Mm-hmm. And that has to change. And we have to find out where that began and hiring the consultant who's going to look at these things and try and get us back on the right track. I don't think people need to be fearful of diversity.
Oh, no, I think you're better off for it, in my opinion. But it's my opinion.
But we have to embrace it and accept it. We just can't talk about it and not be about it.
Yeah.
And so we're going to try and be about it in this district and do the right thing and get things done and get us back on the right track. We sort of fell off, but we can get back on with everybody's help.
No, I applaud what you're doing with trying to get all the stakeholders and. Communications is critical, and as I said, I think in the first half of the show, the fact that you're actually listening is, instead of just talking, is, listening is a hard thing to do, and
yes,
it's a hard art.
Yes, it is. Especially when you're a coach. But you really, you can catch more bees with honey, I say. And you really can't sneak sunrise past a rooster. That rooster's going to get up every morning with that cock-a-doodle-doo, and we're going to have to do the same thing. We're going to have to get up early and get things done. And we're going to have to roll up our sleeves, and we're going to have to engage the community to come in and assist us with things, because we have a very talented populace out there.
We do.
That can really come in and save us a lot of money by teaching us and showing us the things that we need to do. And I want to reach out to those people and get them in, whether it's looking at different options with health insurance when we're talking about finance. We can save a lot of money, and we've had community members to come in and share their knowledge with us. So we're making strides, but
okay.
we have to continue, and we definitely need everyone's help and assistance.
Well, we're out of time.
Oh.
Johanna, thank you.
No.
And thank you for joining us on Education Roundtable.